In the velvet darkness of the blackest night, burning bright, there's a guiding star. No matter what or who you are, there's a light. Least laughing. What comes next?
Wait, where do we
There's a light.
Over at the Frankenstein place.
Over at the Frankenstein place. There's a light burning in the fireplace. There's a light in the darkness of everybody's life. I'll bet none of you knew that the Rocky Horror Picture Show was a Christmas movie. I mean, if Die Hard can be, then why not? I mean, it's not really. And if that movie hasn't found you in your life, I do not recommend that you go out and look for it. But biblical scholar and theologian Wilda Gaffney points out that this particular song, written by Richard O'Brien, it really captures the heart of things as we're thinking about Christmas. I mean, you can just imagine that maybe he grew up hearing the words, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light, and those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined." So here we are. At least in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the darkest time of year. We have just passed the solstice. It's cold. It's wet. Those waves, oh my goodness, that's crazy. And you know what we've heard? The light of God's love shines for us, for all people, here even in the darkest of places that we can find ourselves. God's with us. God is born among us, born as a frail infant, born into a human family. God knows what it is to live as we live. And that is marvelous good news, and that's why we're here, right? We are here to celebrate that amazing light. So, Merry Christmas to you all. Now, here at St. Philip's, we have been talking about quilts all through Advent. We've learned a lot about quilts over the past 4 weeks. We've learned that they have a history. There's all sorts of specific patterns, and there's a language behind some of those patterns. They take squares and triangles, and they create things like stars, and some of them are pictures that tell whole stories, and some of them are even just crazy. Don't always make sense, but they're beautiful, and they say something about them. They carry traditions, and they seem to carry dreams. And sometimes they speak about grief or hope to us. So we've used those quilt patterns to help us do some of that same dreaming and hoping together as we've prepared for this night. Now, over these 4 weeks, I've also shared some of my quilts with you all. And I have one more to share for you. This is new. I just did this today, but check this out. What do you think?
Nice.
Kind of cool. I used it. I love it because I could do it by following a pattern. I'm not an artist, but I'm a great follower of instructions. And what I love about it is, look, the light, it shines through. And if you put something behind it, you can see something a little bit different, right? You like that? When I saw that this came with our Advent inspirations, I knew that I had to try this project because look around us. We already have some beautiful pieces work that use this exact Same technique. And I know you're all looking at this and going, this is not a quilt. It's a piece of cardboard. But it's actually drawn from something that's called reverse applique, which is a very, very popular tradition of quilting that comes from all over the place. There's beautiful, what's called amulas that are from South America that go back like 3 and 4 layers of color. In the United States, you find them historically. They're just really wonderful type of quilting that's out there. And they appeal to me because they allow us to see something in a new way. It was a piece of paper, and now, what is it?
Star.
It's a star! Good, I'm glad that came across. So it uses light. And what I love about this is it's a way that we can meet and think about the light of God's love and the way that that's with us in the birth of the baby Jesus. So I'm going to put this here for a bit. I'll come back to it because I want to go to Christmas. That's why you're all here, right? The shepherds. I was really drawn to what's going on with those shepherds this year. I mean, this says they're just sitting out in the region where shepherds are. They live in the fields. They obviously don't live in town. They don't even live in a village. They're just out on a mountainside, and they're watching their flock. Now, has anyone here ever lived somewhere where you do not have electricity? Vicki has. Yes, you have. Awesome. Anyone else?
Sure, for a couple of weeks every winter.
Probably gets pretty dark up on the mountain when the electricity is gone. Oh, and Annie, yes, you have. Awesome. So a bunch of us know this experience. As I think about these shepherds, I imagine them like what it feels like when you live somewhere that does not have electricity. They're probably gathered in close. They want to keep their animals nearby so they know what's going on because they can't see what's going on out there because it is seriously dark. I mean, the stars, probably incredible. More than just one, but they might have noticed this big special star that's up there too. But otherwise, unless the moon is shining that night, I'm sure Steve has done the research on whether it was or not, but I'm going to imagine it's a night when the moon was not shining. They probably can't tell what's coming. They don't know if it's friend or foe at any given time. It's beautiful, but it's a little bit terrifying before those angels even show up. And then, it's like a floodlight comes out of the heaven, right? You would have, if you were them, can you blame them for being terrified? It probably took them a while just to get their eyes to adjust to what's going on there. Because if you're not used to electricity, it is super, super, super bright. So the angels show up and they tell them, you gotta get up, you gotta go out into that darkness, because the angels go away. That means the light goes away, right? We want you to get up and we want you to go see what has happened in Bethlehem, because this is good news of great joy for all people, for everyone, absolutely everyone, and that includes you guys, the shepherds, sitting out on the hillside. Because born this day in the city of David is a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. So, and then they give directions. This is what you're going to look for: a baby wrapped in cloth in a trough for feeding cattle. It's not really the greatest directions, especially if there's no light in the night. But they're like, okay, we'll do it. Let's go. But I think sometimes when we want to meet the light of God's love in the world around us and in our own lives, we need bigger signs than that. We need something more to guide us and to get us through, let's face it, what can sometimes be a pretty dark time or place. So, back to quilts. Has anyone ever heard anything about Underground Railroad quilts? No? So this is a really, oh, of course, Barbara has. It's a really interesting thing that I just sort of learned about. But the idea is that there are some folklorists and historians who have done some research, and they think that it's possible that the Underground Railroad hung up quilts to help people find their way. And that not only did the quilts help to mark where the safe spaces might be and that kind of thing, but it's possible that different quilt patterns convey different messages. Things like, the log cabin print, which is like all the rectangles that go into a circle, might mean something like you've reached a safe house. And a star symbol, or what's called flying geese, could mean something like follow the path north, go to Canada. It's safe there. And there's a pattern even called the drunkard's path. Never seen this quilt pattern before. I didn't recognize it when I looked at it, but apparently they think that it could have meant go back, slave hunters are near. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's a little bit controversial because they don't necessarily have surviving quilts to work from and to find out if this was true or not. But it's a great, I love the folklore of it, the fact that it's probably been handed down. And maybe it just started out with plain quilts and then it's been embroidered upon, or maybe it really was the case. But it gives you this sense of people who are going through one of the hardest, most frightening, most difficult journeys through the dark they've ever been from. And people wanted to know that they had signs, they had a way to follow, they had a light to carry them through the darkness into this better place. One of the contemporary quilting artists who has made an exhibit of quilts, her own quilts, for one of the stops along the Underground Railroad is called Sharon Tyndall. She's African American. And she talks a little bit about this tradition, and she says, I know it might be true, it might not be true, but for me, in my work, I'm going to put it there. Because for me, quilting about these stories of my people and what they went through, it's an act of prayer. And it's an act of thanksgiving, and it's an act of remembering, and it's an act of faith. Because I know that whatever it took to get them through, they needed signs. And so she says that she quilts all kinds of patterns some of these patterns into her quilts, and then she always makes sure that she puts oranges and yellows into the places where those symbols are, as if they're shining forth out of her quilts. It's a really neat, I thought it was a really kind of an interesting thing. She said once, I consider myself a believer in Jesus Christ and a woman of faith and a storyteller and creator of quilts. And so I'm going to use those gifts to let those messages shine forth into the world. So, I was thinking through this story, Wilda Gaffney, she suggested something interesting, which is it turns out some of God's best work actually happens in the dark. I mean, I know we feel like we don't know what's going on out there, and it's difficult and it's frightening. But the dark is actually a great place to meet the light of God's love, doing something new and marvelous in the world. In fact, the dark is where all kinds of miracles happen, like seeds germinate in the dark. Let's face it, babies spend the first, before they get born, all that 9 months period, that's in the dark. Probably a little bit of light that gets in there, but it's mostly pretty dark. Lots of amazing things happen in the dark. And this, she says, is where God is with us also, always. She writes that it's into the life that a brown baby, Jesus, comes to dwell. In the dark, to dwell and inhabit and teach and guide and accompany, to heal, to forgive, to redeem, to love, and to live. And that means that we are also called to dwell in this good earth, in our good incarnations, our humanness, to live and to love and to forgive and to heal and accompany each other on our pilgrim journeys. We also shine with this amazing light of God's love. We are bearers of it into whatever dark place and in whatever darkness we enter into. And that means God is at work in those places and in us and through us. That's pretty cool, right? That's marvelous good news. So I want to return to my quote. My quote that's not a quote. Because I know that this is not an easy time for a lot of people right now. It's a tough world at the moment. And some may feel that we're in a dark place and are looking for signs, for lights in the darkness, for a star or something to carry us through that's shining with God's presence with us. Because our world needs to find ways forward, doesn't it? And this night, I want us to be reminded that the light of God's love shines. It breaks through, just like the light breaks through this, into all kinds of darknesses for all people. But more importantly, I want to share something with you about this, because what do you see? Does this look like a fully formed star? Not yet? It needs more. Guess what? There is more. From here, all you can see is this bit. But there's more space here for you all, if you want, to cut out a piece too. And we could build this into a more complex and growing sign of the light of God's love in the world, if you want. I brought my X-Acto knife, I have my cutting board, I'll bring it on Sunday when we come back for church again. But the point is that we are the ones that are bearing God's light of love into this world. We're like the shepherds who were told, go see, and then they want to tell everybody about it. They want to tell everybody about it. So never forget that in that velvet darkness, even on the blackest night, burning bright, God is there as your guiding star. And God has come down to be with us, born to be one of us in the person of Jesus Christ. No matter what, or no matter who you are, this is a marvelous, great, good news for all. Amen.
Amen.